Hi guys, it's Kelly here, and I am back with another video for Simon's Stamp, and today we're going to be using some Create a Smile stamps. I'm using the swirly stencil, the This Is Love sentiment set, and then the Aloha Spirit for the florals. So I feel like I frequently make the same card over and over and over and over and over and over, and I'm going to stop saying over again. But you get my point nonetheless. And I feel like a lot of card makers feel that way. But sometimes I don't want to have to think about the layout, Sometimes I just want to color the pretty things. So I am doing a one layer card in typical Kelly fashion, and I am doing flowers because it just makes me happy. I like coloring flowers. I think flowers are pretty. So today we're going to be playing around a little bit with color. I will tell you, by the time all is said and done, I don't know that I loved the layout. It felt very heavy on the right hand side, but whatevs. I got to color and de-stress and yeah, just play with colors, and that makes me happy. So I thought that the little swirly stencil would be super cute in the background to kind of bolster up that Hawaiian effect, like little wind swirls maybe. I don't know if it really looks like that, but whatever, that was the idea. So here I am doing some masking. I did not cut enough masks for all of the leaves and the flowers that I stamped, and I wasn't going back and cutting more out. I just wasn't happening. So I just held the stencil down with a post-it and also covered up the pieces parts I needed to cover. So I put Salty Ocean over the background, and I kind of let it fade to white, and then I removed the stencil and all of the masking, and so I could get into the Copic coloring, which is really what I was here to do. It was a very, very stressful day. So we're going to be doing a more coral colored hibiscus that has a yellow center. So there's going to be some color blending there. I decided to color the centers first. I started with a very light yellow, and then the part that's outlined, I colored in a little bit of a darker yellow. I kept getting phone calls while I was filming. I have no idea why, because I was filming this at like 11 o'clock at night. People would not stop calling me. Anyway, so then I'm going to go in with the corals or the reds, the R's that I'm using from the outside edge. I'm not going to bring it all the way down to the yellow yet. I'm not going to blend them yet. I'm just going to try to get the detail that I can on the outside. So I'm using a very pale R here. It's R00. And I'm just flicking that in from the outside edges. This particular stamp has lots of guidelines already drawn in. So don't, and that was, you didn't miss anything there. That was another phone call. Very popular tonight for, I have no idea why. But anyway, it already has guidelines drawn in. So don't ignore those, accentuate them. They are your friends. They are going to help you make that stamp look the best that it can. So here I'm just adding some shading where I think that the peaks and valleys would be. So however the line was drawn, if I felt like the shading would be on the outside, then I drew or added the darker shading to the left. If I felt like it was going to be on the inside, I added it, to the right, depending upon where those lines fell. And then my darkest color, because it's an R24 and it is more red than coral, I'm only adding very little bits and just to pretty much where the lines are. I wanted to make sure that I didn't overwhelm the flower with that, because I wasn't trying to make the flower red. I was trying to make it coral. I don't own all the Copics. I don't think that you need to own all the Copics, but after coloring this flower, I probably will invest a little more in the I have the 02, I'll probably get the 05. I felt like those are more orange, like tomato-y based than the ones that I have, which would maybe have given me a better coral color. But nonetheless, we're working with what we have. So now that we worked out to the darkest color, we're going to go back in with those same flicking motions and work in toward the center. I'm being careful to just kind of elongate those lines. I'm not adding all of the shading on the edge of the flower. I want some of that lightest color to come out, because that's what's going to give you the look of peaks and valleys, because hibiscus are more striated, they're more textured flowers, and so you want them to have that look. So I'm down to the R02, and I am taking some of those stripes all the way down into the yellow, just because they really would, you know, look like that in nature. And then for the lightest color, I'm just doing a couple of sweeping little flicks over it to get them to blend. When you're blending colors, I'm using the Y000 and an R00. When you're blending two colors from families, you want to make sure that you're picking colors that are very similar, that have similar end numbers. So if you want to blend a R, I don't know, 05 with a RV, pick an RV04 and RV06. Make sure that they're close enough to each other that they're going to blend. I realized that I didn't, with that light yellow, I didn't really have any contrast in the center, and I didn't love that. So I went and picked two darker ones in a YR, even though it looks like a yellow. It's actually, the name of it is yellow ochre, even though it is a YR. So I added that to the center, and then I did add a little bit of shading to the stamen, and then just kind of blended everything back out with that really pale yellow to make sure I was happy with the way that it looked. You can kind of play around with these. Like I said, I had originally intended on just doing the two colors. It didn't work out that way. I'm going to show you one more flower before I move on to the leaves. The reason that I'm doing that is because this flower is laying underneath another flower. I have a terrible, terrible habit of wanting to use all of the colors that I have on the flower that you can see all of, and not really paying great attention to where the colors actually should be if the flower was completely showing. So you can see on the left hand side underneath the top hibiscus, like that petal, I colored the pink all the way down to the yellow. It should not look like that. It just shouldn't, because I was leaving a pale yellow that was blending in. So don't make my mistake. Try to pay attention to how your flower lays and whether or not those colors would actually be down there. Like I said, that's something that's just always been a bad habit of mine. And it's the same thing with images that get cut off, like on the edge here. I want to add more shading than probably should be there, just because it feels very weird to me to have none when the petal next to it has so much shading. What I found helps for seeing how much shading, you just saw me do it there, was I will color almost like a ghost, like the rest of the ghost petal that should be there. I will move my pen in the same shape and see if the tip of my marker even touches my page, and then I will know that there should be marker on there. If the tip of my marker doesn't touch it, then there shouldn't be that color on there. And even though it feels weird, I should probably abide by the way that the flower is supposed to look. So again, I'm working out to my darkest color. I'm really only adding just those little lines of the darkest color to make sure that it stays kind of coral, trying to keep those lighter colors so that there is peaks and valleys, there is that striation. But there would be, because that other flower is on top of it, those petals would be slightly darker. So I usually just outline the side of it and then blend that out, so I know that I'm not going to miss that part of the shading. And then just, you know, the same thing that I did before. I colored the center the same, I colored the stamen the same. So then we're just going to move right on to the leaves, which is going to be a little bit more blending of colors. Here I'm going to be blending the BG11 with the YG01. And again, I know you're thinking, oh, what you just said, Kelly, you just said make sure they're close in color, but they both end in 1. So I know that their intensity is going to be about the same and that they should blend well. So for the leaf, I'm decided to put the darkest shading not only where it's coming out from behind the flowers, but also down the center where that line is drawn, and just kind of flicking them out onto the fronds of the leaf. Before, when I was doing the stamping and the masking, you may have noticed that I didn't cut out each individual portion of the leaf. I didn't think it was necessary, because at the end of it, the ones out on the edge, I'm going to be outlining, and then the ones that were on the inside, I just figured I would color either A, petals underneath them, or B, more green so it looked like another leaf. I was totally fine with it. I wasn't doing that much work, guys. It was a lazy Friday night in my house. I had a rough day. So once I'm out from the down to the darkest color, and then I'm going to come back in with that darkest color and color underneath those leaves, underneath those separated parts where I feel like there would be more green, and then finally putting on the last color. This color blend is super easy because the YG01 is a stronger color, so I don't really have to worry about them blending with the BG01. It was just like, it just blends perfectly, and then I just go back over it with the BG11 to make sure that it doesn't just look completely green. The only time I really used the YG03 was when I was coloring any parts that were underneath something. So I went ahead and colored everything, and this is the point where I was talking about where I was going to outline them. I just went ahead and outlined the whole outer edge in a B00, which is pretty much a perfect match for the salty ocean when you're using a light hand, which I did. And you can see here, and I know that a lot of times you guys make comments about how I'm like too hard on myself. I think as crafters we all kind of are. I'm not... it's not like I hate them or anything. I just try to be honest about give my honest opinion about the cards at the end of the day. So I felt like it was very bulky. I felt like the bottom of the card was very heavy, and so I was trying to give them some separation. So I decided to go in with a C5 and then a C3 and add some shadows just to the flowers to kind of make them pop up a little bit off of those leaves, just to give it some separation to try to break up that heaviness. And then I also added just a small shadow with the C3 to the stamen because it would be up above the flower. Then I just cannot help myself with this white gel pen, guys. I can't. So I added just a couple of little details toward the center of the flower, but most importantly I added some dots to the stamen because they are very textured. That all of that pollen is very textured. So again, you guys, if you watch my videos, you know I say this all the time. I love a black outline. I think it makes the colors pop, especially if you're using bright colors. It just makes your image look just so much more solid. So I do go ahead and outline all of the images. It only takes me a couple of minutes and it makes me happy. So I do it for every card. I'm going to be using some clear Wink of Stella on just the outer edges of the flowers, just so that there is some sparkle on there. And then for the sentiment, I am stamping in Simon Says Stamp black ink. I stamped in intense black when I did the coloring because that's Copic safe. This ink is not Copic safe, but it is great for sentiments. So I'm going to stamp the large love and then the smaller sending you. Since I stamped in black for the sentiment and for the flowers, I'm going to use the old white gel pen trick just on the V and the E so that it is segregated from the rest of the card so it's more legible. And then I did just kind of go around the bottom of the U in U because it was sitting on that heavy edge of that petal and it was kind of hard to read. So that is the entire card. I know it's been a minute since I posted. Hopefully I'll be seeing you guys more often. I got a couple of days off, so I should be able to get some videos shot. Thank you so much for joining me, and hopefully I will catch you on the next video. Bye.